the panel to come up, led by my beautiful lady. She's going to introduce her panelists very well, and then let's hear the story. I would also request that Mr. Baloy, if you can also join, because some of the questions are definitely going to be coming related to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. My name is Sisintle Sanjikwapeng. I'm a Program Manager from Idol Consulting. So we've had our first speaker, Mr. Baloy. We are speaking on municipal innovation and transformation. So this is what our topic is about this afternoon. If our panelists can please take their seats, I will properly introduce everyone. We have Mr. Sikulegile Kuleduma, who is the Director of Program Management Office in the Private Office of the President. We have Ms. Dawn Marie Buckland, who is the Executive Director and Deputy County Assessor in Maricopa County, Arizona, USA. We have Mr. Kenny Buckland. Our Program Director was wondering what's happening. Do we need to declare anything? They are couple goals. He is a retired police commander from Gilbert, Arizona in the USA. Serving in executive roles both in government and in private sectors, Kenny has over 23 years of experience in law enforcement, purpose-driven leadership, training, technology, and sales. He has also been a SWAT commander, so if you want autographs, you have to come through me. Then we have Ms. Jessica Hoffman, who is an assistant city administrator from Wentzville, Missouri in the USA. Please don't ask why I have so many people from the US. I guess they'll be taking me in their bags when they go back home. So we've already had our first speaker, Mr. Baloy, who spoke to us on data and AI, who is from Accenture Africa. And right now we are going to have Mr. and Mrs. Buckland speaking to us more on data-driven decision-making. I'll hand over to them.
Well done. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dawn Marie Buckland with the Maricopa County Assessor's Office. I heard a term yesterday. I recognize all of you in your eminence. And I absolutely love that because it's truly an honor to be and to have the opportunity to learn from every speaker and every conversation. So thank you so much for having us and all protocols observed. Mr. Lance Joel earlier today was talking about the importance of data intelligence. And I don't think any of us were surprised by that. We're all here because we're passionate about public service delivery. But sometimes in the middle of that delivery, it's really hard to stop and figure out how we can leverage data. We're busy doing the work. We know that we should be measuring it. We know that we should be analyzing it. But that's hard to do when we're in the middle of the storm. We all have more needs than resources, and it just feels like we don't have time to do what we need to do with data. But the reality is we don't have time not to. So as we look at leveraging data for public service, we want to start with why is that important? And again, because we have limited resources, one of the first things that comes to mind when we look at the importance of understanding our data and what it means is that we can use it to actually prioritize the use of those resources. When we prioritize the use of those resources, that informs our decisions. How are we going to prioritize the use of those resources? How are we going to leverage our people? How are we going to spend our time? How are we going to spend our money? It also helps us to communicate the value. And as we're constantly questioned on the decisions that we make in local government or the decisions that we don't make in local government. And having the data to support those decisions to actually tell our story. how many of us find ourselves defending ourselves on a regular basis and the decisions that we've made? When we take the time to leverage our data, we have the opportunity to actually tell our story. And ours is a great story to tell. We help people every day. We change and transform lives every single day. And when we take the time to actually look at data and leverage it in the most appropriate ways, we can be proactive in telling that story. We can actually demonstrate why we've made the choices that we made, or why we are going to make the choice that we're about to make. And then ultimately, it results in very real impacts in our community. And when you start to see the progress that you can make, we've talked so much this week already about these big issues and strides that we're trying to make in fairness and equity, and in being able to provide exceptional public service at the local level, because we know how much it matters. When we leverage the data, when we make informed decisions, we will actually start to see progress, incremental, small progress, every single day in our ability to provide public service. So a lot of times, especially for those of us that have been in government for a substantial amount of time, and I've been in government for 33 years now, it is really easy. The more we do this, the more we work with our public, we learn. Some of our decisions come to us more quickly, and we rely on our intuition. We all have examples of where our intuition has served us very, very well. What we don't know, though, is when has it not? Because we don't know what we don't know. And at what point in time have we used intuition and not had the best result and not even known it? When we use data, we have the opportunity to do a number of different things. Again, going back to long-standing government employees, the office that I'm in right now, about 5 years ago, we have a team of about 300 people, and about 5 years ago, over 100 of us had, not myself, I'd come from elsewhere, but over 100 of our team had been there for more than 30 years. They had tremendous knowledge, which was very valuable, but we also had a tendency to say that's the way we always do. That's the way we've always done it before. And one of my colleagues mentioned, I believe yesterday, that those are some of the most dangerous words we can use. We want to break that down. We want to at least be able to look at how we've always done it. And if we're doing it at the best possible way, that's great. We can continue to do that. But we have to take the time to answer that question first. Using data also helps us to reduce bias. And there's a couple of different types of bias that I want to touch on briefly. And I invite you to consider this further here as you go forward. Because there's the bias that we have on a personal level, based on our own filters, based on our own experience. We see the world and as based on how we've experienced it across our lives. And that personal bias can come into play in the decisions that we make, even if we don't recognize that we're doing it. But there's also bias in data. And that can be embedded in the data because of the person or those people and their personal biases that had been actually maybe programming the systems, setting the rules for the analysis, and maybe inadvertently introducing personal bias. But it's also a big part of ensuring that you have enough data that's representative of the communities that we serve. I'll give you an example. If we were to look at banking data, and if we were to look at loans that were issued in the United States between 1940 and 1970, and apply that analysis to who should receive a loan today, it's not going to be representative of women. It's not going to be representative of different races, because the data that was used during that period of time, even if you don't take into account gender and race, that data didn't have enough information about the other genders and races. That's another way that bias gets introduced. So as we look at leveraging data, we want to make sure that we have sufficient data that's representative of all of those that we serve. And then finally, as I mentioned, sometimes our intuition is correct. And if that's the case and we've measured it and we've been able to determine that, we can actually make that distinction and be able to indicate as such. I encourage us all, as we look at leveraging data, to look at what data matters. because what's not helpful is measuring absolutely anything and having a bunch of ones and zeros up on our walls that we can't use and we can't leverage to actually make informed decisions. So as we start leveraging data more, we want to start with our why. What is the root problem that we're trying to correct? What is the information then that we need to know to be able to make those informed decisions? And then what decisions can we make differently as a result of that analysis? Again, going back to the responsibilities that we have to our communities, to our elected officials, when we look at what data we measure, how we measure it, and what analysis we do with that, that allows us to make those informed decisions, and it allows us to actually recognize efficiencies and more effectiveness in the services that we're trying to provide. And so when we can actually see correlations come together, maybe we didn't even realize the influence that certain activities were having in what we thought was an unrelated area. As we start looking at the data, we can see those correlations. Now, that said, it's also very easy to draw conclusions that may not be correct. And so knowing what to measure and how to measure it and how to look at that makes all of the difference in the world. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes we get buried in the wrong metrics, and we're focusing on counting things that maybe doesn't influence outcomes the way we think. So we want to look at that as well. And then we also want to recognize the difference between something that's correlated, something that you see maybe measured together looks the same, but one may not cause the other. And I particularly liked the analogy here that shark attacks happen to increase about the same time that ice cream consumption increases, because we have more people swimming in the ocean when it's warm outside. We have more people eating ice cream when it's warm outside. One does not necessarily cause the other. And then finally, as we start looking at how we start leveraging data in our organizations, data governance becomes a very big issue, and I believe my colleague's going to touch on that a little bit later as well. We want to make sure that we understand the potential negative impacts that can come as well, and put the right barriers in place to prevent unintended consequences. So as we talk about personal identifying information, for example, we want to make sure that that we have the right data governance in place so that we're not inadvertently doing harm in those analytics. So with that, I'd like to introduce you, as you heard earlier, you have a 2-for-1 this afternoon. My husband, Kenny Buckland, is a retired police commander. He's also certified in data-driven approaches to crime and traffic safety. And so as he presents some of this related to public safety, I hope you'll recognize that the same concepts apply in every aspect of local government and the work that we do.
Now you know why I married her. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, very humbled. If I may, stand on the protocols that have been observed and the dignitaries who were acknowledged. And I'm going to jump in because I have a lot of information in a short period of time. So, in policing, actually I'm going to say this, I'm going to step backward because I want to tie into the prior panel now that I'm thinking of it. Someone on the panel had mentioned ethical leadership and the drive, I think it was you, ma'am, for all executive leaders had to be ethical. All of our staff do. When you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, physiological needs are the base, right? The water, shelter, food. And then secondly, Maslow puts safety. I would argue with Mr. Maslow that those two are actually interchangeable, because if your people are not safe or they don't feel safe, you don't need to give them water and shelter because they're going to go to another community, right? So it's imperative that when you hire from the base police officer, you have high standards. I would rather go short on police staff and high on their moral character and their integrity than I would just fill chairs. To do the latter, you end up with lots of problems and a lack of trust in your community. And there are communities in the United States, if you paid attention to the news, that have suffered those problems. So moving on from that, intelligence-led policing, somewhere about the 90s, we started getting smarter and we started looking at data. And we did a lot of different ways. The first one out of the chute was CompStat. New York City Police Department was, the crime was running rampant. The new chief brought in this model called CompStat. It was high in success as a model of attacking crime. However, it did come high in criticism. It was more of an attack model. Now, it requires accurate and timely intelligence, that you use effective tactics, rapid deployment of your people and resources, and relentless follow-up and assessment. My own opinion of the initial launch of this was that they forgot a fifth critical component, and that is community policing, engaging with your community that you serve. They did statistically lower crime, but again, there were some alleged marginalization and negative impacts from that. Other agencies, like my own, many around the country have used CompStat, deployed it differently, modifications to ensure that we are actually working with our community, who they are, where they are. Oh, there, back. And there. This is the one that is closest to my heart. It's a very long word, very long name, Data-Driven Approaches to Crime and Traffic Safety. I'll just call it DDAX. So DDAX was a model, CompStat's a model, DDAX is a model. I'm going to speak briefly on two mechanisms that are more infrastructure after this, but the core of my presentation will be focused here because I have witnessed tremendous success in lowering both crimes and crashes and enhancing public trust in the communities based on how we deploy. So some smart person back in about 2009, Howard Hall was a commander with the Baltimore Police Department, an organization that is on the fringe of Washington, D.C. and was riddled with violent crime. He and a couple other colleagues from agencies of all sizes, small with problems such as property crimes, that was their big thing, where his was robberies, assaults, and homicides. But very smartly said, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough time, and we don't have enough money. And we work in silos. Traffic cops work here, criminal investigators work here, patrol, they work here, they have their own command structures, and they don't communicate. Is it possible that where these our highest crimes are happening, so too are our highest incidents of crashes and fatality crashes? So they started looking at data, and they used some kernel density mapping, looking at hotspots. So it's a heat map that anybody can see. Anyone can look at, no matter your education. And if you look at the bottom one, it spells out in bright red, we have a problem. And what they found out was at a pretty significant level, where our crashes were, so too were our highest crimes. So then it was a matter of building a strategy to attack it in the right way, adding in the tactics that support that strategy, and then deploying. And we compared against a historical 3-year average to figure out where to deploy. The great thing about DDAX is it lowers bias in policing. With this model, we're no longer person-based. We're not looking at the human being and going after the human being. There's not a name attached to it. It is purely, where does the data tell us the problems are? And it's cops on dots, right? It's location-based. It lowers your racial profiling because you're not looking at people. You're just looking at locations. And to get to the result of the community, we found that our hotspot based on the 3-year historical average was in what we call our heritage district. And it was an area that we were trying to bring in economic development. It was slow happening. Restaurants would come, would fail. Well, we had a lot of crime around there. Our cops, they know the players. They know the houses. We had one house that our SWAT team hit 6 times in 20 years. We put him in jail, the judge lets him out. We put him in jail, the judge lets him out. And the community there, over time, felt unheard. They felt left out, and they stopped reporting. So when we deployed this, we deployed it with a high community policing theory. We wanted to re-engage with the community that we lost. We developed an app so that they could connect with us and report anonymously. We merged those resources that worked in silos. We merged our traffic our criminal apprehension units, our bike teams, who are our most engaging because they're in the neighborhoods on patrol, they're talking with residents. And they work 4 10-hour shifts, right? I said, I only want 2 hours of your time. The rest of the time, you go do what you do, right? Because our cops were very successful. But they don't know exactly where it's happening, and they don't know exactly when it's happening. They're in the right area. What they knew this probably a 6-block area, but what they didn't know, and the data told us, we had a 2-square-mile area that was plagued by the crime coming out of here. And so we told them where to deploy, when to deploy, and then ran this program for a year. What we found was we started getting community engagement. They started talking with us, they started trusting us, they started reporting to us, and we started getting more intelligence. Through that intelligence, we learned under our own nose, because we're about 3 hours north of the Mexican border, under our nose we had drugs coming up from a cartel directly connected to a home in Gilbert, Arizona. Then, if you know a link analysis, it spiders out. We had homes in the west side, homes in Phoenix. We had drugs, 500 pounds a week, running on a semi going all the way back to Pennsylvania. So we were able to partner with the agency in Pennsylvania. And we did a 7-month undercover investigation that led to over 300 felony arrests, 41 indictments with another 20 criminals arrested, a neighborhood that regained trust in us and was happy, and now a very thriving area, our most thriving area with economic development, where now 5.4 million visitors a year come to this area in Gilbert. We reduced crime 46%. We were the fastest growing city in the nation, and we kept the rate flat. Conversely, and our problems were mostly property crime related. Conversely, back in Baltimore, where their problems were human related, they reduced crime, robberies 34%, 17% in burglaries, and a 41% in stolen vehicles, and also declined their crime 1%, using no more time, no more people, and no more money, same as us. To wrap up, there are a couple of other mechanisms that we are using in the United States very successfully. Quickly, fusion centers, agencies that are part of the fusion centers, like my agency, we send a detective, we send a crime analyst to a hub in the Phoenix, in the city of Phoenix, the major hub. They are connected. There's 9 regions. RIMN, Rocky Mountain Information Network, is our node, and then 9 nodes run up to a hub in Washington, D.C. It started for counterterrorism, but it has merged into overall crime prevention and enhanced criminal investigations. Criminals, they don't know borders. I'm just going to commit a crime in Gilbert. I'm not going to go to Mesa. They don't know borders. So we were not connecting with our neighbors. We find that we had a criminal that was burglarizing our residents and Mesa and Chandler, and now through these fusion centers, pulling all of that information, and analysts analyzing it said, here's a pattern, here's a trend, now we can deploy to arrest them, and we improved both our prevention of crimes, but also our criminal investigations. And then finally, this is the current wave in the United States right now, real-time crime centers. It is merging everything I've talked about in terms of crime analysis, but also using technology. Axon body cameras. Most police in America are using body cameras now. It's high accountability through that, right? Public can see it. It's transparent. We have a first responder drone program in my city. The drone can launch ahead of our police officers to a call. Whether it's an assault, whether it's a crash, it can beat the traffic the patrol's going through, get eyes in the sky, feedback instantly so we know in real time what's happening and how to properly engage that, manage that. This is growing as we speak, and as advancing technologies come into play, you're going to see real-time crime centers just continue to build and grow on that, and really make our citizens much, much safer. All of this requires, to wrap up, it requires that law enforcement is accountable. It requires that law enforcement is transparent. In our community, we show. Any of this data we take, we show. One thing that we also do in our communities to make sure that the community can completely trust us is we look internally. We have an Office of Professional Standards, and we're looking at data on ourselves as well. arrests by race and gender, right? We want to make sure that our department is a mirror of our community. And if we have a situation where the demographics aren't matching up and we're making arrests at a higher level on one segment of our community, then we need to look internally and say we have a problem. We need to investigate it, we need to fix it, and we need to correct it. So I'll leave you with that. At the end of the day, the data is great, but we have to check ourselves as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Buckland. I'm seeing real-time things, which is something that we are always struggling with, especially in the municipality. We want to see things real-time, whether it be finances, whether it be crime stats. So that's definitely something to look forward to seeing that we are improving on. Our next speaker is Ms. Jessica Hoffman, an assistant city administrator from Wentzville. Her talk is something that we all definitely need to pay attention to. She's speaking on work smarter, not harder.
Thank you. All protocols observed. I do talk fast because I have a lot to talk about, so if you need to record me and you can listen to it on slow-mo later, I'm not sure that I can slow myself down enough because I love this topic. I don't know anybody, I've heard somebody say, I don't know anybody who has enough money or enough resources to do everything that they want to do. And if you do, raise your hand. That's what I thought. Just quick poll, who is super excited about AI and think it's the best thing in the world? It's going to change how we do things. Okay, and who is absolutely terrified? Be honest. And it's going to take over the world, but maybe that's scary. And everybody else, y'all are just kind of maybe in the middle. Maybe it'll help, not sure. Okay, well, I hope that I can help you with some real-life examples. My self-described credentials are local government enthusiast and efficiency advocate. I also identify as a disruptor. So when people say, that's the way we've always done it, I say, why? Let's break it and see how we can do it better. So I just want to give a little context, a little bit about my city and why we were able to accomplish some of the things that we have, and then benefits, tips for success, types of AI, and some real examples, maybe some ones that are a little out of the box, and some challenges, implementation tips in your organization. We are the fastest growing city in the fastest growing county in the entire state of Missouri. So that's why I'm there, because it's really fun and exciting, but it also creates a ton of challenges. For the first time ever this year, as we were putting our budget together, we are having to say no to positions. We are actually freezing vacant positions. We've never faced this. So our growth is slowing down, and we have to be much more strategic about how we spend our taxpayer dollars. So AI is how we do more with the same. So not more with less, but more with the same. And how we do the things that it can help us do is boost our productivity and efficiency. I say that AI does the things that don't necessarily add value. So do you need minutes for the meeting? Yes, it does need to happen, but does that really have value for somebody to take the time to dedicate to do that when the AI can do it for you? You still need the human to verify that the information is correct, but if that human could rather be engaged in the meeting as opposed to just sitting there taking notes, I think we can all say that's a pretty good use of our resources. And it frees up the staff time to do what we all, I think, came to public service to do, which is create good human connections and provide high quality services for those who we serve. And using AI, as we have said over and over, helps us support the data-driven decision making. Who has never done anything with AI at all? They're like, ooh, I saw that ChatGPT is a thing, but I don't want to. Everybody's used AI, every single person. Really? Yay, go team. You all deserve a round of applause for that. That's fantastic. If it's been a minute or if it's been since yesterday, it's changed. It changes literally every day. So whatever your favorite tool is, I used to say the Google Bard was their first version. Now it's Google Gemini. It's getting much, much better. ChatGPT is just one that I happen to go to. I pay for it myself. Like, I pay $20 a month and I use it for life and I use it for work, and it is phenomenal. So it's worth $20 US. But don't use AI or ChatGPT like a robot, although I do call it the robot at work, and now we're all like, oh yeah, the robot helped me prepare this memo, just so everybody knows. It's kind of become part of our culture. But I treat it like a teammate so that it knows what it's supposed to be doing. Like, hey, you're working for the city with me, I'm dealing with this particular issue, help me get to the next level. But it is not always the right solution, and I have found that out, but it is, when I get stuck, it's my first go-to before I go anywhere else. You also need to make sure that you validate your results before using. Another thing here is I wouldn't use AI for something that you don't know how to do. So I do not know how to do computer programming, but I thought I could. And I tried to have the AI write a script for me to automate a process. And I spent probably 6 hours trying to write a very simple code and still did not get it correct because I had no idea what I was doing. I could not verify the end result. I would not use AI yet until you know if you can verify the end result, or have a teammate. I see some head nods over there. I'm like, I see you. Or you maybe know somebody that can help you verify the end result. So some real local government uses. Customer support. So Yulia, who is here with our delegation, talked about an AI tool that they actually made a cartoon of, and it's a whale, and they are using AI to help people help themselves, and it's 24/7 service. That's online, and it can actually help with phones too. Document drafting. Our AI wrote the AI policy for our city. We had the AI write its own policy, and we refined it and edited it, but starting with nothing and going to create something takes a lot more energy than it does to just edit, refine, change. And, we have colleagues, at least in the US, if you're like, oh, I need a request for proposals for this kind of specific thing. Maybe one other person has it and is willing to share it with you, or you can just have the robot do it for you. So then you're not disturbing other people. It can be a research aid. That interactive FAQ we've talked about. If you're an HR professional and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how many times we're going to get this question. The policy is extremely clear. You can build little tiny chatbots within your own organization that will answer those questions for you based on your existing policies. And then, I don't know if anybody's had to do this, I'm sure they have, but if you remember having to screenshot process documentation, it's like, step 1, screenshot, write the thing. Step 2, screenshot, and that would take like hours for like a 10-step process. Now there's tools that will do that for you. And so you can have SOPs or other documentation for the onboarding. We've talked all day about training and upskilling and making sure people have the data and tools that they need. This is how we do it. I know we've usually talked kind of high level, but I also think it's really important to talk about like how you can use it as an individual, because we can't control the people around us even though we want to, especially the elected officials, right? Or the elected officials may say, I want to control the staff. So what we can do is control ourselves. If you've ever sent that email that you were kind of frustrated with somebody and you sent it and you were like, probably shouldn't have sent that email. I think we've all been there. Instead of maybe waiting, because the rule is, sleep on it, maybe you can't. Maybe you can have the robot help you write an email that is a little bit more tactful than what you would have done in the first place. I also know that we are whole humans, right? As HR professionals, they've got a lot of stuff going on, and if they are distracted about the things that they have going on at home, then they probably can't show up 100% at work. So if you need to use it for meal planning because your budget is $100 for the week and you need to feed 4 people, what can you do with that? And maybe you have an allergy in the family. It can start your grocery list for you, do the meal planning, give you the recipes. It can help with vacation planning, family organization, schedules, fitness plans. I have had the robot do my fitness plan for the last 18 months. I have a workout partner, and we have different needs, but we want to work out together, and it's written it for us. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I encourage you to do that. My headshot is AI generated, and it cost me $4.99 US, and I got like 20 of them. And you know how much I spent on clothes? Nothing. I spent nothing on a photographer, and I needed an updated headshot. I can also do content design, all kinds of things. We could talk about this all day, but data privacy is very important, making sure you're not using PII or public personal identifiable information. I sometimes will use like dummy names. Leslie Knope is my go-to. There's a very popular show in the US called Parks and Recreation. I highly recommend it if you have not seen it, but it also can be biased. There's all kinds of different things. I would recommend you spend some more time because there's not enough time to talk about all of these, but make sure that you're using it responsibly. And then tips for implementation. We talked about psychological safety. It's okay to experiment. So start with something small. And if you're the person that's willing to be the disruptor in your organization, maybe just say, oh, I'll do that. And then you come back and it's like this really amazing thing you did in 20 minutes. People are going to say, oh, how did you do that? I want to learn more about that. I will also tell you that's how you become the AI expert in your organization. So, kind of decide if that's what you want to do. Pilot program, I call everything a pilot program. We're just going to see how it goes. And usually the stakes are a little bit lower. We talked about celebrating failures all this week, which is amazing. We should totally, I'm stealing the fail award. I think that's fantastic. Instead of saying like, this is never going to work this way, replace that with not right now. We can try again. Literally the AI tools are changing daily. And then balance the data with human judgment. If you want to take a single picture, these are my favorite tools for AI. They are real. Almost all of them are free. Scribe How is a free document process tool, and it's free for anything that is web-based, so highly recommend that. And then if you are in school, or if you know somebody in school, Notebook LM is a game changer, and I highly recommend that too. But there's more. I'd love to talk about this offline if you are interested, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hoffman. I'm glad to have seen that there's a lot of hands that went up when she asked who has used AI, who's not scared of using AI. Actually, one of the things that we also have implemented to assist the city of Ekurhuleni is introducing the smart waste collection system. So that's helping people work smarter and not harder. But then our last panelist is Mr. Kule Duma. He is going to speak on digital transformation roadmap, and he is the Director of Program Management Office in the Private Office of the President.
What is it? Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you're all well. As indicated, my name is Kule Duma, where we sit in the Private Office of the President, where we coordinate what is known as Operation Vulindlela. And I think some of the colleagues would have heard about it. You would have known that in the first phase of Operation Vulindlela, it was really around how do we remove the impediments to investment in the country, be it in energy, the issues around load shedding, kind of the logistics industry, water use licenses, and so on. In the second phase that the President then launched middle of this year, we've included digital transformation with the acknowledgement that this not only can change the way that citizens receive services and therefore change the relationship and the trust between citizens and government, but also at the same time, it can also build what we call the digital public infrastructure, the basic infrastructure that can support the emergence of a truly digital economy within South Africa. And so in many ways, having listened to the colleagues that came here, we're talking about perhaps not just the future of government, but the present of government. And as we all know, while the economy moves quite quickly, adapting to some of the changes that are out there, whether it's AI or some of the geopolitical forces that are there, government has moved slower than I think a lot of us would like. And the truth of the matter is that if we were to design government from the scratch today, according to what the expectations of citizens are, according to the services that citizens need, we would design government very differently. We'd move away from this siloed approach that departments and whether at a local government level or a national government level often indicate. In many ways, government is a relic of when it was first created, whether in the 1700s or the 1800s, and across the world. And some would argue that our government is a relic of another time. So in many ways, this is trying to change that, trying to make sure that the accessibility of services to people is done in a very different way. And we're proud to say, I was quite impressed with the examples that were brought here, but we're proud to also say that many of the examples of where digital government is going around the world actually reside in the global south. And so a lot of the examples that we used to come up with the digital transformation roadmap and the work that we're implementing now that was approved by Cabinet came from extremely amazing examples that we were seeing in places like Brazil and India, where they must answer some of the pertinent questions that are constantly in the minds of the people in this room. How do you, make that gap between rich and poor smaller? How do you make sure that you are offering the same quality of services to people in rural areas as you are to those people in the urban center? And so this really brings us to this idea of digital public transformation. As I said, governments have existed online or have had some kind of digitization of some kind, one would argue since maybe the 1940s and even before that, when the first census was done. But as we look at the 2000s, it was really about an basic online presence, provide you information. Into the 2010s, we start to see online services where you can book your license, you can do whatever the case, but still very siloed. Department X does this, Department Y builds that particular infrastructure. But where we are right now is something called, as I've indicated, digital public infrastructure, which is really around how do you build shared infrastructure that is user-centric, that is scalable, modular, that is open and can be then reused by other sectors of the economy and doesn't get you into this vendor lock that has characterized a lot of the relationship between the private sector and government before. Ultimately, it's also about building capacity within government to make sure that we can execute. And then when you think about the services you're offering, citizens do not care about if you are Department X or Department Y. They just want you to provide the service. They look at us as one government, whether we're at provincial, whether we're at national, whether we're at local. And therefore, the design must speak to that. And so why have we come up with the digital transformation roadmap? Because like many countries during COVID, which accelerated, I think, a lot of governments into the digital age and made real the reason why it was important, is that we faced challenges. And one of those challenges, was that we had to figure out, like many countries around the world, how millions of people were going to get social protection services remotely, something that hadn't been done at that scale across the world. And what we found is that a lot of our data systems, a lot of colleagues have talked here about AI, and I intentionally don't talk about AI because even though it is part of the vision that we have, because you've got to first fix the actual data sets, right? If the data sets are not great, then it's going to produce something that is also not great, right? And so what we found is that the infrastructure was inefficient, and actually there was a lot of fraud in the system. And this is not a secret. In many countries where social protection payments are made, a big portion of that often doesn't go where it is required. And India famously has challenged this. And so what this meant is that the actual deployment, while the SRD 350 which was one of the social protection measures implemented in South Africa, was successful getting millions of South Africans. We found that there were major implementation challenges that were actually preventing us from actually reaching everyone. And so the idea was, how do we make sure we increase the trust in government services, make them reliable, make them accessible, and then remove the administrative burden for citizens. And this thing of administrative burden is key. I mean, all of us have gone to a Home Affairs office, right? And we've hated the fact that we've had to stand in line for a long period of time, spend much of our day trying to get a critical document. But colleagues, I will challenge you to put yourself in the shoes of a young South African who lives in the township or in a rural area and then must take multiple taxis using the same social grant that government has paid them to get there, stand in that line the whole day, and because of ageism, they get to an official who tells them, you don't have the right documents, go home. What is the implication of that? How much money has been spent? How much has been taken out of the day, whether it's a young person or an old person? You know? And so how do we make sure that we reduce that administrative burden? People don't have to go to police stations and pay taxi money just for us to prove that a document is actually what a document is meant to do. So again, I've talked much about what we've seen overseas in terms of this idea of digital public infrastructure. And we've seen it in our peers. In Brazil, Brazil is famously known as having Bolsa Familia, right? Which is the Brazilian social protection service that touches millions and millions of people. We've seen that by building common infrastructure, walking away from this idea that each department must have its own IT system, that they've saved over $1 billion with just a $1 million investment, so 1,000 times. We've seen in places like Nigeria where the introduction of an electronic ID within the public servant has meant that you slash the issue of ghost workers, and again, almost over $1 billion of investment that has been made there. And I think India is perhaps, for us, who are looking at how you do this in the developing world, maybe the place that we look towards. In India, there's about 500 million beneficiaries, that were paid social protection services throughout COVID. They've increased that when we went to India at the end of last year. They've increased that monthly to 800 million people, right? And they use the government's payment system, which doesn't charge government much and has no cost to the consumer. But perhaps one of the most impressive things we saw in India was the use of digital money. Literally, Gokos on the street who are selling peanuts in a place like Mumbai, it could be Marabastad, it could be North Topri taxi rank, it really could be anywhere in South Africa. And they are receiving this digital money. It is being paid in the villages, it is being paid in the towns, and there's mass penetration of this across the economy. So impressive is the local innovation that there is an understanding that amongst many of these women who work in the markets, the literacy rates are not high. So when they receive the money, it actually speaks in their local language. And anyone who knows, who's been to India knows it's like South Africa in the sense that you have many languages across many regions. And so they can trust that that money they're receiving is truly theirs. And so this for us is exciting because we think about the parts of our economy that are unbanked, that have been kept out of financial inclusion. And so if we're able to make sure that digital money is used in the local environment, it means that we have an understanding of how much money is moving. But you can imagine that for the local entrepreneur who's never been able to get access to a bank loan and therefore scale, and if a local entrepreneur is not getting access to financial services to scale, where do they go when they need to buy their stock? They go to the Mashonisa, right? That's where they go, right? With how much interest that they must pay on a daily basis. So imagine how we can change people's lives when we see that in this business there's 20,000 Rand, 15,000 Rand moving, and actually this person has a viable business in which we can give income to. So what the roadmap is about is articulating a vision for South Africa between now and 2030 in terms of the future of digital government. Leveraging the lessons that we've learned from across the world, especially in the developing South, but also in the developing North, places like Estonia, for example, identify what the key milestones look like, and then, of course, saying what will actually enable that, because it's, as South Africans, as we know, I'm saying it in front of our visitors, we're very good at plans, very, very good at plans. It's the execution that sometimes eludes us. And so the idea is really this idea of one person, one government, one touch. That is our philosophy. And what do we mean by that? Well, inherently, through the digital ID, you're able to prove that Kule Duma is indeed Kule Duma and therefore can access all of the services through a single sign-on. That means you move away from this current experience where you go from one website to another website, and I'm asked for continuously for multiple logins, right? That is backed by your biometric data that Home Affairs already has. The great thing about South Africa, if I can tell you now, because I'm encouraging you also a little bit to go change those green mambas if you still have them, is that we actually, unlike India 5 or so years ago, we do have a universal ID. Most South Africans, 99-point-something% of South Africans, have an ID number. And the smart ID then captures your biometrics, right? So your retina, your face, your fingerprints and everything. And that's why when you go to Home Affairs, you can indeed prove who you are. If you go to a bank, you can do that. About 16 million of South Africans have that digital ID. Have that smart ID. The rest of the South Africans have the Green Book. If you ask where the fraud is happening, it's happening on the Green Book. So if you still have that green mamba, I would encourage you, please, to move on as well. But it's a good starting point, because already we have so many South Africans that who have captured their biometrics and therefore can build the digital ID on. But really, when we think about who are we servicing, we think about Thandi, who's articulated in the Vision 2030, the National Development Plan. The question is, how do we make Thandi's life easier? How do we make Thandi's mother's life easier, her brother, her sister, her friends, and so on? Those are the people that ultimately we need to deliver for. And so this really brings us to this government stack that we're trying to build across government, not owned by a single department. It might be led, but the idea is that the whole of government leverages this to make citizens' lives easier. That is namely the data exchange, which means that if I've got information at Home Affairs, or I've got information within National Treasury, or I have given my information to SASSA, it is the responsibility of the government department that you're applying to for a service to ask for that information from the other government department, right? And this is when we talk about, one touch, basically. And so this allows information to flow freely in government. Digital payments I've spoken about. It reduces the costs of payments that we make. At the moment, we're paying about 17 Rand per kind of social grant transaction. I think it actually might be higher. We make 26 million of those every month. Times that by 17 Rand, it's a big cost to government. If you build a national payment system, you can reduce the cost significantly. And of course, what it does for citizens. At the moment, using digital money is quite expensive. But if you can build that universal payment system that the SARB is currently working on, it can reduce that. And then digital identity, which I've spoken to at length here. And if you can bring those three together across government services, you can enhance the level of services that you're able to offer people. The idea really is that we build what we call a life cycle of services, from the day that someone is born to the end of their life, and maybe even beyond that. And so the example I always give is that if myself and my wife tomorrow decide to have a wonderful baby that is born at the hospital, of course we go to the hospital, but the baby is then electronically onboarded. They know that these Kulegile Duma and my wife are indeed the parents. They have captured our data. They know that I have a personal number, so I work for government. And therefore, if I'm collecting the social grant for this baby, it's a no-no, right? And then of course, after that birth, the system or the central application that we're trying to develop for this, then should actually send a message a few days after the baby's born to say, you live in this area. These are the immunizations that you're required. That is also captured within the system. And then, of course, when schooling happens, when study happens, everything is automatic. No more long lines, no more having to print out thousands of documents, because those are already there. So, for example, when that child gets to university, and let's say the child is now my brother's child who's unemployed or so on, the system can already tell that this child has gotten 5 A's, but this child has parents who've gotten the social grant. So automatically that child should be getting NSFAS, right? You don't have to go prove. That's the idea, and you can imagine that for health. And that's where in places like the UAE, for example, they've deployed AI. I mean, it's so advanced in places like the UAE that, for example, through your interface of this kind of centralized app, they're able to actually tell that you might be susceptible for particular diseases, and therefore it's able to help you prevent those diseases because it will refer to a doctor and so on. So it's really excited what you can do if you build this kind of foundational stack. We've spoken about this, what areas we're looking at, But some of the use cases or things that we're trying to drive, especially end of this year into next year, into 2027, are things like a verified digital wallet or document wallet. What that means is that if you forget your wallet at home, you can go out and your ID and your driver's license are all there on your phone. And if someone needs any kind of matric certificate or whatever the case, you don't have to print it out and stamp it. It's people trust that that document is what it is. It is a digital mirror. And then we talk about the data exchange, and we'll be launching the data exchange into next month. And that, of course, allows not only us to share services better, but it means that we can have what we call a 360-degree view of the citizen. It means that we are not sitting in buildings in Pretoria or different parts of the country or in the center of kind of municipalities and guessing what citizens require, but we know because the data is there and it's rich. And then, of course, what we will launch fairly soon is a zero-rated website for access to the government app, the kind of digital services platform, and so on. Of course, the question we always get asked is, this is a country of massive divides, and will this actually, help the poor or not? I mean, for us, we sometimes don't give each other enough credit. South Africa has a penetration of smartphones, and I'm talking basic smartphones, but they're still very useful. In places like India, they've penetrated into really even rural areas of about 80 to 90%. So we actually have a good base to start in. The real thing that you have to deal with is the cost of data. India currently has about a fourth of the cost of data, indicating that it is the cheapest market for data around the world. And what will be important for us is to make sure that these services are zero-rated so people can actually access them. We saw during COVID that even though there were some challenges, South Africans are very good on their cell phone, good at applying for services. So we think on the back of that we can make. But of course, the education in society is going to be important. I've spoken about this. Our big focus, of course, is around first, between now and 2027, how we build this basic infrastructure. And first, we use it to make a connection between the social protection services, where millions of our people are dependent on it, and then make a link to job outcomes as well through some of the work that's taking place in the presidency and across government. In the second phase, we look at application to healthcare. We look at application to safety and security and probably other areas. The important maybe analogy I can make of this digital public infrastructure is the highway system. When the highways were first developed, they were actually interestingly developed to move army logistics or military logistics from one part of the country to another part of the country. We know today that that is not even 1% of why you use that particular infrastructure. It's really the idea of DPI. You build it for one thing, but there's really 100 different uses of why that infrastructure is important. This, in some sense, is an example of what you can do in the My Mzansi app that we are developing. The entry through kind of a digital ID biometric sign-on, this idea of a single wallet, the consent, because, of course, the POPIA Act and the likes are important, so that really puts it in your hand. And, of course, there's multiple places where we've learned about this from the EU, where they also have stringent privacy laws as well, and then also the idea that the services eventually, the more you use it, wrap around you. And this is not new. If you're honest, if you jump onto social media, that algorithm has already built itself around you in one way or another, so there's nothing. But when we come to municipalities, even though we're focused now on national government, there are areas where we think this is important. Of course, local government is where people receive services and interact with services the most. We think what this does is that it brings a seamless experience to local government services across the board. Brazil, through the gov.br platform, offers thousands of services from municipalities to provinces. So it is very possible to do this. It reduces this idea of duplication. It gives this idea of one government and so on, whether you move from Cape Town to Joburg or whatever the case. It increases trust. And then, of course, the important thing is that it also increases that inclusion as well for communities that have been left out. We understand we've started with national government, but the idea now is that we want to push it into municipal government as well. And so we really do welcome the engagements with SALGA. We are engaging with the provinces through the Government IT Officers Council as well to see how we can support the provinces with moving forward. And then, of course, there are areas of municipal use cases that are important: property rates, permits, water, electricity accounts, and housing waiting lists. The idea is that we've got different levels of maturity within the South African government ecosystem. Where there is maturity and strength, you support it, you allow it to run, you make sure that it aligns with the standards that we're trying to build at the center of government. But for example, where additional help is required, then we can bring in more people to support the visioning, the planning, and so on. And so this is going to take some time. But of course, it becomes important to do this to make sure that we are sharing those APIs, that we're making sure that the design system is the same across the board, but ultimately to enable municipalities to offer services that speak to their own people within their own context as well. I'm not going to touch on this, but it's just to say that we understand that this is not just something that you can wish into thin air. There's a couple of things that we must leverage. The first one, of course, is an accountability mechanism within government, which we've built the interdepartmental working group, which is chaired by the DG and the presidency, and includes all the various departments across the board. So at a technical, administrative level, you've got a whole of government approach. We also have an interministerial committee that was appointed by the president. And then we also understand that while it's about making sure we build capacity in government, while it's about making sure that government leads, that we also do have a private sector that has done this, and in some instances done it better. One thinks about our banking sector, for example, and how do you leverage that expertise, not so much in a kind of contractor-vendor relationship, but rather in a way that is a South Africa Inc. approach to dealing with these services and making sure that they're best. Because if they work, they don't just work for citizens, but they work for industry. They can streamline application processes and so on. And then lastly, of course, just making sure that we are looking at some of the key cross-enablers, cybersecurity, and the likes going forward. So we've said a lot, but really the idea is how do you transform using this idea of digital public infrastructure that is owned by the public, driven by government, that business can enable, including civil society, to fundamentally transform the relationship between government and people, and again, enable that trust where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Duma. Program directors, do we have time for questions? Okay, unfortunately, we do not have any time for questions, but thank you so much for your attentive listening during this session.
Thank you very much to the panel. And the moderator has just left them. But yes, thank you very much. You may take your seat. The moderator was still enjoying seeing them. There is also an iPad that has been left here. Colleagues, we are running a bit behind, and I think we will need to probably try to do justice on other items that are going to be following. Before I can give the announcements, there is a silver Mercedes at parking lot 2. It's written JJ23. I'm not sure the other letters, but the back door is not closed. So if we can please just go and attend to that. We are about to go to lunch. After lunch, we are going to be changing the game a little bit. We're going to be getting into commissions. Now there is another room called Mkombe room, just across the foyer on the other side. There is that room. It takes about 70 people. So we've decided that the first row And the second row, they will be going to that umkhombe room. The ladies and other gentlemen are going to show them where it is. Oh, you see now Karen is taking over my job. That's what Salga does. You don't do justice, they take over. The first row and the first row that side, they will be going to that umkhombe room, where the commission is going to be dealing with the increasing importance of employee wellness in meeting future demands. There's going to be an NCAP presentation, and also there's going to be a panel discussion that side. And the second commission will stay in this room, which is going to be dealing with diversity management, a conversation beyond diversity and inclusion. There's also going to be NCAP presentation and also the panel discussion in this room. That's going to happen when we come back from lunch. I'm not sure. Karen is itching to say something. No, that's it. Commission 1 must go to the where there's only 70 seats, which is that row and that row. Then that's going to make 70. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think we understand. In that commission, may I request also that Mr. Kenny Buckland, Mr. Betsy Keller, and also Mr. Amel Camelo join that commission. And then we're going to do those after lunch. And then we're going to be back here around 15:40, 3:45, for the commissions to give us feedback. Well understood? There is a question to be asked. Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, lunch is going to be, we have taken some time now for lunch. I think we will have to go to 2:15. Am I fair? 2:15, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry about this, but it has been an oversight in terms of time's allocation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's enjoy the lunch at the main restaurant. And then when we come back, we go straight to the commissions, and then we are back here at 3:45. Thank you.
I'm sure this one's wonderful, yeah? And then, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to re-emphasize that, or maybe clarify, the presentation or the commission that will be in this room now will be the one that deals with wellness, resilience, how we prepare for future demands, and then in Umkumbe, the other one just across the hallway and the other passage, that will be the Commission 2 that's going to deal with diversity and inclusion issues. And then 3:30, we'll come back and we'll report back so that both get the benefit. Thank you.
Oh, hi. Yes. The sleep therapist.
Yes, that's me.
Okay. So you're going to join this panel?
I'm going to do a 20-minute presentation, then join the panel. Yes.
That's fine. So I'm going to see whether you sit next to me or you sit last.
Other people are going to come up only after.
After you have
After I'm
presented.
done, then people are coming up.
Have you seen how they move up?
No.
So what happens is that after you've presented, before you can conclude, in actual fact, we normally move up with you.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm asking. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I think I've only met only two of my panelists.
Yes, then I've only one of the three actually. There's, do you see her over there? That's number 3. So it's these 2 gentlemen. Number 3 is 4.
I'm struggling with my kitchen breath. But it feels so empty with everybody.
Scattered, ne?
If you can ask them to just
Then
come.
you can ask them to move in. Adults resist moving in once they've settled somewhere.
I did.
Yeah, no, I think maybe she got confused. Good afternoon. A very difficult moment after lunch when our stomach is full. In 2 minutes, we'll start with the session. Just 2 minutes, we'll start. Wrong way. Oh, that means you are not doing it all along. You are forgiven. May we settle in? Okay, I think we are, what, 70% back? So may we start? This is the Commission 1 that deals with employee wellness, the increasing importance of employee wellness in meeting future demands. And then there is a panel, of course. I'm going to call them to come to the stage, starting with our anchor presentation. That will be Ms. Lali Moraba, founder, Kanya Wellness Coaching. She's going to give us a fresh perspective about wellness. So obviously she'll be held by the moderator herself, the facilitator, Ms. Lidile Mulope, Provincial Director of Operational Limpopo, where I'm coming from. That's Limpopo. Can I get those hands? Yes, and then the panelists will be as follows: Ms. Lesego Mkomesi, Human Capital Division Manager, CSIR. She'll also be following in the stage Mr. Nicholas Molale, Employee Wellness Manager, Ngaka Mudiri, Mulema District Municipality. And also we've got Mr. Kevin Foster, Research Consultant, Center for Sustainability Transitions. Can I please allow all of them to come in the front while we are giving them applause? Where are they? All the panelists, may you please come and sit as she's presenting. I'll really appreciate that, so that I don't stand up again. Okay. No problem, Ms. Helen. You're welcome. Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon. As I start off, by a show of hands, I would like to see how many of you get, on a regular basis, 7 hours of sleep. Okay. 1, 2 nyana. There's a few more this side. Okay. When was the last time, if you're not the one who's getting 7 hours of sleep, when was the last time that you spoke to a colleague and they said to you, I get great sleep, I have great energy, and today I'm ready for the challenges that are going to come at me? Zero. Exactly. And yet, something as small and as big as sleep is exactly what the feature of municipalities, their ability to deliver services, to innovate, to handle pressures like urbanization and technology depends on. All of this rests on employee well-being. And that's what I want to talk to us about today. And as I do so, I want to introduce us to two people that we may recognize or not. The first one is Naledi. Let's meet Naledi. She's a municipal worker in the city of Joburg. At 7 a.m., she's already tired because she slept late the night before. For breakfast, because she's in a rush and doesn't have time to prepare healthy meals, she grabs a coffee and magwinya. By 9 a.m., Naledi is out in the community serving as she ought to do. Naledi is only 35 years old, but she's already on prescription drugs for high blood pressure. I also want to introduce us to Thabo. He works in the Mangaung municipality. He's a 42-year-old manager there. Any people from Mangaung? No? Oh, Hello, over there. By 11 a.m., Thabo has already been in 3 meetings. He feels most days like there's more meetings than hours in his day. So he skips breakfast, and for lunch, he grabs a chisanyama, which he eats at his desk. His afternoons are taken up with putting out fires in the office because one of his most trusted employees is sick yet again. And he's trying to work on a budget shortfall to rework it for an urgent project that needs to be done in the community. Thabo finds himself leaving work late, more days than not. His mind is buzzing and he's highly stressed. And so, in order for him to be able to fall asleep when he gets home at night, he's getting into the regular habit of downing a beer, or 2, or 4. Whether you are Naledi, the frontline worker, or Thabo, who's in the office, these are the people that municipalities rely on to have water delivered, to sort out billing issues, to implement important local government legislation. And so this should show us that their well-being is directly connected to what happens in the community. So if Naledi and Thabo are running empty, and they aren't even aware of this, how much more does this affect municipal spaces? Let me just take this further into the community, into the country. Statistics tell us that half of South African adults are overweight or obese. That heart disease kills 43% of adults. That a quarter of South Africans live with depression, mental health issues. And so it goes without saying that if municipal employees are a cross-section of our society, that they themselves are in these numbers, as 50%, 43, 25%, which then calls for days, for times such as these, for us to take decisive action, because it is urgent that municipalities equip themselves to be able to handle the future demands that are coming, things such as an aging and a sick work population, budget cuts, service delivery backlogs. If there aren't enough people to do the work, there's going to be backlogs. So this means that municipal workers, municipal leaders in particular, are required to be on the top of their game, not just in political negotiations, but even in their own well-being and in how they model it to the people they work with in their different municipalities. Let me ask you another question as a reality check. How many of you know if your municipality has a wellness policy? Fewer people than those who sleep 7 hours. So for those of you who do know that if it has a policy, do you think it's being implemented? Okay, 1 year, so. And this is the thing, right? Policies are there. There's no shortage of these policies. And the case has been made for policies. If you just do a quick Google search, there are enough of them. The Ndlambe municipality recognizes that personal and work problems influence your performance. The Mokaka municipality, in its policy, links wellness to absenteeism. The Mogale City municipality provides for a wellness committee, which promotes workplace well-being. So on paper, all the way from Alfred Nzo to Chris Hani to Giyani, the case is strong on paper for employee well-being in municipalities. But implementation is lacking. Why is this? There could be many reasons. From the employees, from the employer side, the municipal side, it could be reasons such as maybe the wellness policy is there, as I have been able to find these quite easily on websites. So tick, compliance has happened. But they're not seen as something to integrate, to prioritize in the daily workings of the municipality. So we just announced that maybe at a once-off ceremony that, we have a policy, but we're not following through in any way. And it could be also things such as lack of human capacity, lack of financial resources. Those are real issues. And then from the employee side, wellness may feel like something that happens to us. So the municipality has this policy, and it seems like it's something which they want us to do. The leaders want us to do. It's not something that we think we're doing for ourselves as individuals. We definitely don't think there's a connection to us as municipal workers being well and how we're able to provide services in the community. So the city of Joburg will say we're having a team building session at Emerentia Park and we are happy to go to attend. Hey, it's a day out of the office. Fun. We'll do aerobic sessions. I see these quite a lot. Municipalities like to do these aerobic sessions. Great. Nothing wrong with any of those things. We might even have these annual screening days where they check you for blood pressure, etc. And some of you discover only on that day that you have high blood glucose, which signals that you are suffering from diabetes. Something quite serious that you're only discovering because your municipality brought in people for a day once a year. You attend these events, but you're not really living out a culture of wellness because we don't see the connection. Also, from a mental health perspective, something which is quite real that we're talking about today, maybe employees come to work, but they don't feel safe to talk about their mental health issues. They don't feel that it's safe for them to express that they're overworked, and therefore they're stressed, and that's affecting their physiology, not just their psychology. And so if we go back to Naledi and Thabo, she decides that she's going to do the bare minimum, rock up at 9, and then maybe leave at 3:30 when nobody's looking. Thabo, on the other hand, he thinks that there's greener pastures in the private sector. So he leaves for that. And we might say good for them. But actually, this is a serious loss because the municipality is losing institutional knowledge and memory. And this affects not just that one municipality, but also service delivery in the community. With Naledi not there and her team weakened, services aren't being delivered, and the people are affected, and that's not what we want. So, we need to deal with this problem. According to the popular wellness wheel, which some of you may have come across, it's something that is actually included in several municipal policies that are there on websites. This wellness wheel recognizes that wellness or well-being has many dimensions to it. We're talking here financial, environmental, social, spiritual, etc. And this is the model that I resonate with deeply because it speaks to us, or speaks of us as whole beings. And this is how I want to approach myself and I want to approach other people, especially in the workplace. We don't just arrive as brains and bodies. No. We're coming with our full physiology and psychology. So if you have an anxious mind and heart disease, that's you at work that day. Period pains and stress loads, that's you. All of it shows up at the office. And so from my perspective as a sleep strategist and health coach, I come at the wellness wheel with 5 pillars. That's how I work and I serve my clients. And these are light, sleep, nutrition, emotional well-being, and movement. I'm just going to touch on these quickly and to connect them to the municipalities and see how we can make them work in each of your municipalities. Let's speak first of light. This is a little known fact, but every single one of us here is a light being. We're not just bones, brains, flesh, skeletons. We are light beings, and that matters even more than your skin. It matters even more than your heart and your brain. But it is unfortunately little known. And it matters because you may have heard of the term circadian rhythm, which is the 24-hour day or 24-hour cycle that runs our day and also runs us. And the circadian rhythm drives every single aspect of your health, your energy, your mental health, whether you're going to get heart disease or not, cancer or not. All of these things are directly and indirectly connected to how much light you get or don't get. And so, if it comes to municipalities, and as we're speaking of future demands, your exposure to natural light, or lack thereof, especially for people who work in offices, is going to affect your learning, your ability to adapt to technology, which I'm going to speak about in a moment. So this may not be so much of an issue for field workers like Naledi, because she's out there all the time serving the community. But as I just said, if you're in an office all day, it does affect you. So 2 quick tips I would give you for office workers. Work near an open window as much as possible. And at the top of every hour, go outside and take a 5-minute light break. Some of your colleagues are taking smoke breaks, and they're also getting sunlight, thankfully. You also go out for a sun break while they're taking their 5-minute smoke break. Just don't stand next to them, because you don't want secondary smoke. Then we have sleep. I really shouldn't have to talk to us about sleep, but here I am doing it. And this is because most of us consider sleep to be a necessary inconvenience. We find it annoying, so we try to do as little of it as possible. But the reality is, you sleep well, you work well, you live well. That's just how it is. We cannot avoid that. And it's a favorite topic of mine because I was somebody who struggled with poor sleep for a very long time. Most of my childhood and as an adult, I struggled with sleep. And I know for a fact that it cost me opportunities in life. I thought I was doing well. I was a corporate attorney at some point in my life, and I thought I was doing well, but I also could feel that I was living through a brain fog. But because everybody else around me was doing the same thing, it didn't affect me for a long time until it did, which is why I speak so much about this. And we know this from our own personal experience, that when we're poorly slept, we're more irritable. There's office conflict. We may not tie it directly to the fact that I only got 4 hours last night, but it's happening. And then the opposite also. When you're well slept, you're able to make good decisions as you should. And what does this mean for the community? Better service delivery. People out there like Naledi aren't making critical mistakes. If you're doing plumbing or you're city power, fixing power things and you're underslept, serious mistakes could result from that. So, a direct connection. Then, quickly to nutrition. And here, we all know, again, that we should eat healthy. But so many of us, including even today, we are putting diesel in petrol cars and then wondering why this thing isn't moving. We know we should be doing better. Donut or apple, we choose the donut. But also, that's also connected to how well you or how badly you sleep. You make poor dietary choices if you don't sleep well. Your mind, your brain starts craving unhealthy things if you're not sleeping. So something that I would suggest as a quick practical thing is for people to do in your teams, in their municipalities, is to do meal planning challenges with your teams. And to encourage people to pack their lunches instead of being like Thabo and buying the chisanyama. And I know it's a bit of a difficult one because we want to support local economies, the ladies or the gentlemen who sit outside municipal offices selling stuff. We want to support them, but try and balance it every now and again. Do the chisanyama on the Friday, but most of the time, pack your lunch and such. Because again, with regard to future demands, you are going to need to fuel your brain properly, fuel your body, keep your blood sugar stable, so that you are able to handle the technological changes that we are going to be faced with. Then I want to speak of movement, and this one is an easy one, except that people think they move only if they want to lose weight. And I wish we would take it away from that. Because here's the thing about movement, is that it's been shown over and over again scientifically that it's even better for us, for our mental health, than many pharmaceutical drugs that we are taking for mental health. So consider things such as, again, at the top of the hour, standing up from your desk and stretching a little bit, or doing a step challenge with the municipal manager, getting people together, doing weekly step challenges, and then awarding prizes at the end of that week. Then the final pillar I want to speak of is emotional well-being, which is really just another way of talking about psychological safety. And this is a sub-theme of today, a sub-theme of the Saga conference. And here we want to start normalizing conversations about stress and anxiety. We want to have municipal managers, leadership, themselves being open about their own struggles, not hiding from the fact that they are stressed, that they have mental health issues, because what it's going to do is encourage ordinary municipal workers to also open up, to be able to express that the workload is too much, or I'm not coping, even in my personal life, and it's therefore affecting my work here. Because psychological safety forms the foundation for innovation, inclusivity, and better service delivery. And I would want to encourage this, especially with October coming up. That's going to be Mental Health Month. And so there are things that can be done in municipal offices, such as debriefing sessions, breath work, that people can just, again, top of the hour or every 30 minutes or whatever it is, 2 minutes to breathe. To learn how to breathe intentionally would be incredibly helpful to workers. So I think I've shown already that there is a connection to wellness, that it isn't a topic that exists in isolation. And it must be considered in the broader context of the issues that I've spoken about and that we're going to discuss just now as a panel. But before I end off, I want to touch on at least one, which is employee wellness in the face of artificial intelligence. Here's the reality. For employees to be able to adapt to AI, they're going to need more than go off on a course, here's a training manual. No. They need their brains, their bodies, and their minds to be well-fueled, well-rested, and resilient. Oh, dear. So, around 2021, 2022, when ChatGPT broke onto the scene, we were all very excited about this, and we were saying to people, don't worry, it's all exciting, but it isn't going to take your job. It's only the people who learn how to do AI that are going to take your job. The reality is it's now about 3 years. Jobs are being lost. It's happening in the private sector. It's coming to a municipality near you. We cannot be in denial about the fact that AI is taking some jobs, at least, which therefore means that there's going to be anxiety in people about their job security, about their own competence. So wellness connected to AI here means that we must support employees with becoming adaptable, with upskilling, and also with stress management, as I've already mentioned. We need to reassure municipal employees that AI might be smart, for sure, but it cannot, at least currently, replace a well-rested, emotionally intelligent, creative human being. And as municipal leaders especially, we need to resist the temptation to just rush off to efficiency, to say, well, the machine can do things better. We should not be doing this at the risk of losing human connection. Because here's the thing. While service delivery might be improved, there's no machine that is ever going to be able to empathize and to reason with people who are coming to the municipal offices ready to do a service delivery protest, ready to burn down something. We need well-thinking, well-rested people to be able to handle situations like that. And so with regard to the bigger theme, as I'm about to close, I would want to make the point that you cannot optimize service delivery if your workforce is depleted. You cannot innovate if your people's brains are exhausted and they can't think of new things to do. You cannot drive inclusivity and diversity if your employees are too burnt out to listen empathetically to each other. And you definitely cannot collaborate globally if there's no resilience locally. As aptly observed in the Richtersveld Municipal Wellness Policy, human beings are the most valuable asset in any workplace. And because most of us adults are going to spend most of our lives, our waking hours, working, then employee well-being should definitely be a top priority for employers. With all that in mind, this is my final question to you to think about. What will you do differently on Monday morning, not in 3 months' time, but on Monday morning, to make Naledi and Thabo feel like their well-being matters? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I think I won't wait for Monday, less to say that the lights that are facing us are telling of how much light we need in the office. And I think they got your memo that we need more light. So we're going to delve deeper into the conversation really around employee wellness. And I have with me 3 experts on this matter in their varied areas of knowledge, and I'm not going to take much of their time. And I'm going to start with Lesego, who's from the CSIR. Lesego, just talk to us about what the effect of AI has really been in the workplace, and what are the advantages and disadvantages around the use of AI, or the advantages really of using AI in the workplace.
Thank you so much, Lidile. Good afternoon, colleagues. I think we heard in the presentations earlier that AI is supposed to be there to help us work smarter. And I wouldn't agree more that it just cannot replace us, because we need the human touch for us to be able to deliver services to people. Because when I approach a municipal office, you see, AI can never replace a person. When I approach a municipal office, I expect to speak to someone who understands. And I think that on its own already says you need a person that is in their best state of mind to be able to engage with. And that's where wellness comes in. And we cannot rely on AI to support our staff members and say, go and watch a LinkedIn course for you to be at your best. We need to have time to sit around and ask a person, how are you? We have seen with COVID-19 that we were distant from one another, and we are created as social beings. So we need to create those opportunities for us to interact and have that human connection. And I acknowledge that resources are limited, but we at least have one another in the municipalities, and let's optimize and use that. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Let me opt to rather use this mic so that we are more effective. And Nicholas, just talk to us really. Nicholas is a municipal employee, correctly? Yeah. So we want Nicholas to just take us through what he should tell us his experience in implementing employee wellness in your municipality, and what have you realized as the benefits thereof?
Thanks, and good afternoon, colleagues. We, as Ngakamudere Mulema, we are coming from different formats of implementing employee wellness. The first time is when we did not have a professional service provider appointed in our municipality to give a multidiscipline intervention. In that way, we spend a lot of money towards assisting employees, but at the later stage, we appointed the professional service provider. Is when we had confidence of employees to interact with the program. Then it was then when we realized that this is important, and we need to ensure that we have a well-established integrated wellness program, so that our employees must now start performing. As you know, that employee wellness is all about ensuring that we optimize the performance. And indeed, during that period, we saw change, and we saw change in terms of also in terms of behavioral issues due to the fact that we have such particular service in our institution.
No, thanks very much. I'm then going to take on our next panelist, Kevin. just demystify for us just transition issues, especially under this topic of wellness and AI, and what we can expect in the workplace environment, or what we should prepare ourselves for as senior managers or as the actual platform for municipalities to function well in.
Yeah, thank you. I think, you know, part of what we're trying to talk about today is the future and what's coming, and understanding what we mean when we talk about transitions and energy transitions and just energy transitions and just transitions is quite important for that. And the way we've kind of spoken about it, particularly in relation to local government, hasn't helped us understand it. It's made it a lot more confusing. And so I think, you know, as a good starting point in anticipating what's coming for the future, just to understand what an energy transition is. It's a change in technology and how we relate to that technology. In this instance, it happens to be energy, and we're moving away from coal-fired electricity towards renewable energy, and away from oil towards electric vehicles, primarily. That's the energy transition. It's going to happen to us. It's being driven by global forces, it's being driven by market forces, and it's being driven by our own difficulty in generating electricity. What a just energy transition is simply a policy response to try and make that more just in terms of distributive justice, restorative justice, and procedural justice. Distributive justice, making sure that no one unduly benefits from the energy transition, so the rich don't get richer, that the burdens, well, at the expense of the poor, let me say it that way, that the burdens are not unfair either. And then in terms of restorative justice, making sure that both in terms of people and the environment that supports us and supports our societies gets accounted for in how we do things. And then in procedural justice, making sure that how we make decisions and how we make policies is fair. That's what we mean by when we start adding just into the idea of transitions. When we talk about a just transition, we then add in not just energy, we add in climate change, we add in ecological change, we add in things. And that's going to change what municipal officials experience, because their day-to-day jobs are about dealing with infrastructure primarily.
And the other side? There's a lady there that can, oh, okay. All of them are showing me mics. Anybody, just to round off, just give us a feel. Yes.
No, you were very good. You did very well. You did very well. You were smiling. You attempted to engage us intellectually and otherwise, and you were very resourceful in terms of the topics that you came up. I also appreciate, I think we appreciated the expertise and the choice of the panelists that we have selected. But progressively, constructive criticism, progressively. In future, you must also try to invest more time on the engagement of the audience. Yeah, on the audience, because it was too much of panels. But they were very resourceful. Don't get me wrong. Very resourceful, but in future also invest some time. I understand it won't be such easy because we are a big crowd. Yeah, but you were excellent. Yeah, thank you so much.
That side. Hey, you hear local government, they're saying seconded. Okay, Lance is here. I would like to give him a space. Other than that, colleagues, we'll meet up at 6:30. Once Lance is done, please, you can just be relieved for now, and we're going to meet up at 6:30. Thank you very much for today.
Well, thank you very much, program directors. Can we give a hand to our two program directors in our own way? It's not their instruction. Not their instruction. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You are clearly ready for 6:30. You have set a very high bar for the team that will be facilitating tomorrow's session. And I'm certainly looking forward to that team stepping up. And I wish them luck. I thought there was one thing, maybe two, that I wanted to raise before we conclude today, because we will be losing some of our participants today that will not join us tomorrow. So the first thing is, this morning we were in Parliament, we were accounting to the Portfolio Committee on COGTA on the performance of the organization for the past financial year. And we thought we were smart by telling Parliament that we have secured our 13th clean audit as an organization. You don't have to clap, because what I'm going to say now is going to be the worrying part. And the question is to us as SALG. So how does your 13 clean audits contribute to the state of local government financial management? You know that question. You know that question. It is the same question that is posed even at the municipal level. Klatuzi will tell us 9 consecutive clean audits, but the community is asking, where's our services? So there is something that we need to do, and I pulled a few colleagues earlier, and we had a conversation about something that I think we need to, in this room, think about quite hard and look at breathing life into it. And it has come out throughout this morning, and it has come out yesterday. And it's called performance management. We really need to look at introducing, as we said yesterday, performance management for all municipalities, non-negotiable, and cascaded to the entire staff complement within the organization. Because I think as we commit, because that's exactly what we do at SALG. It is not a nice process at the start. But remember what we had said yesterday. We say, introduce performance management, cascade it to everyone in the institution, and link performance to rewards. Because as soon as you incentivize performance, people are going to be deliberate about wanting to do better. Because there is reward at the end of the system. Even if we don't like it, it's laborious, you must report. It's worse at SALGA, it's all done, it's automated. Must get into a system, must put all of your information halfway through, it collapses, you must start again. But why do you start again? There is a reward at the end. But more so, we can account for the deliverables we have set for ourselves for the year. So I just wanted to indicate, because we have agreed that we are going to be issuing a survey in the next day or two to all. It's a survey with 10 questions. Literally 10 questions we are asking you about what you have done with performance management. Whether you have implemented it, up to what level have you implemented it? Is it in line with a policy? What does the policy look like? Do you have a council resolution? What is the detail of that council resolution? So, simple questions. It will take you 10 minutes to complete. And then you attach the information that we need. Because what we would want to do is by the end of this month, we want to get a sense of what does performance management look like from an implementation perspective across the country, so that we can start responding to this question that the portfolio committee. By the way, we have 3 months within which we must report back to them. And I'm just giving you one example of one thing we had to respond to this morning in the portfolio committee. So please look out for that survey and assist us in completing it, so that we can indeed direct support to yourselves in that space. Of course, the work around financial management, which is not your responsibility, although you contribute towards that, will be led from another discipline within the municipality. So that's the one thing I thought I needed to raise, especially because we have municipal managers here today, and they will not be with us tomorrow. Why will they not be with us tomorrow? Is that, and please don't go and say they were gallivanting. Tomorrow we will expose municipal managers to some of the things that other municipalities are doing, so that they can go back home and look at doing something similar. And we're also going to expose our guests to our own heritage that we have as a country. And I must say, and still hope, Gordon, because I saw on the program, this 6:30 invite says the dress code must be formal or traditional. I hope colleagues came ready, because Eswatini can't beat us at home. Eswatini can't beat us at home during our Heritage Month at our dinner. So the challenge is on. Is it on? Is it on? Why do I only see Eswatini responding there at the back? He's already dressed for the occasion. So we will continue tomorrow with the proceedings, and do hope that, as we did this morning, the delay was on our side. You were present. The delay was on our side to get the evacuation proceedings going. I'm hoping it will be the same tomorrow. You are going to wait for us to start, not the other way around. And therefore, whilst I am going to draw lessons from last night, I'm told some people left at 10, which was the closing time. But they were in the minority. Do you understand? That's why we started on time today. So I'm going to ask the organizing team to take 10 minutes off what was communicated for today's end of the dinner, just so that you have 10 minutes more to wake up in the morning and be ready to start. But please do join us for this evening. I'm going to repeat what I said last night, because you may not have been here. We want to avoid fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We have catered for all of you. I can only eat and drink for myself. I can't drink and eat for you. Please come and drink and eat your own food, so that we avoid fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I'm looking forward to seeing you this evening. Thank you very much.
you.